Hello, everyone. This is Michelle, guys, with another Let's Connect session. And I am so delighted because today we're actually going to be doing a second conversation with the Mary Cole Watson. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe, hit the subscribe button below. And make sure you click the bell so that anytime a new one of these sessions comes out, you will be the first to know. So I always love having the opportunity to meet, introduce, present amazing guests. And if you were here a few weeks ago, you got to meet Mary Cole Watson. So Mary Cole Watson, thank you for coming on and being with me again today. How are you, my dear?
I am wonderful, and it is my pleasure. I'm so delighted to be back. Thank you, Michelle.
Absolutely. You know what? We got to talking the last time, and, you know, sometimes with some subjects, there's just not enough time to really get in and really kind of deep dive. And so I'm not going to belabor the point today. We wanted to talk again about, you know, we talked about, and you kind of shared, you know, young people of color. One of the things that was really great that you found a benefit and a blessing in your own life was having this finding and developing people, one, that look like you, but we're able to pour into you and then kind of really share with you about this love for Black culture, being a Black woman, being able to kind of nurture that on the inside of you. So let's start there. Would you mind sharing again, Mary, kind of how this evolved or kind of how it started in your life?
It evolved in my life when I went to college and studied African American history and majored in elementary education. In my African American studies courses, I learned the phenomenal contributions of the African American culture in every single endeavor to the world and to this country. And I simply fell in love with my phenomenal culture because I was learning truths which children do not learn through their education in school. The African American experience is not handled in the history books. And when it is mentioned, it is inadequate, very inadequate. And so by deleting the history of African Americans, the students and adults get the impression that African Americans haven't really contributed much except what they've been told during African American History Month, if in fact it is celebrated. So our history is basically missing, even though we are Americans in this country who have contributed just as much, if not more, than any other culture. We have been deliberately excluded from the history books. And so when students don't get to learn about themselves, they think that they haven't made a contribution. They think that their people have not made a contribution. And so they feel devalued. And when they feel devalued, they're going to disengage from school. They're going to fail in school. They're going to be depressed. And they're going to show all other types of behavior because the messaging from society and from parents is that there's not much that we can do about it. So let's just do what you're expected to do. And that's very difficult for a child because children can't think like adults. And so that takes adult coping mechanisms in order to turn the other cheek and do what a child needs to do in school. So it has to do something pretty much impossible.
Yeah. So, you know what, Miriam, when you were talking about that, and for those of you who may be tuning in and maybe this is the first time, this is Mary Cole Watson, retired educator, a woman of purpose. She is the author of the book Wisdom Warriors, which really delves into a number of conversations around with a young girl, Sky, who is the character in this book, and her grandparents, you know, and in this book, they kind of talk about a lot of different things that young African-American people, that a young African-American girl has questions about. There's things that she's seeing, whether it's in the news, whether it's at her school, whether it's in her neighborhood, you know, which are all things that all African American young people are starting to see. And so Mary wrote this book, which it is amazing. You can get it at www.wisdomwarriors.com. Just click that link below and you can get a copy for yourself and for those in your life. But one of the things about that book that really kind of struck me was, you know what, this is a great way to engage the young people in your life, whether you are a parent, whether you're a grandparent, maybe you work with, whether you're an educator or you work with a youth serving organizations, so there's some young people that are around you. So Mary, how do we, you had the beautiful experience of learning about all of the contributions African Americans have made, and you're right. A lot of what we have been taught or shown does come around Black History Month once a year. It's not necessarily in our books. So how do we then, for what we don't get, or maybe what our children don't get, how can we make sure, how can we give them what they need in terms of creating that, for them to have a full understanding of the value, the love, the contributions that our people have made over the year? What do you recommend? You are the expert or an expert in this area. What would you recommend?
Well, let me say very humbly that my book is a beginning. My book is unique. There is nothing like it in the bookstores. There's lots of anti-racism books, but there aren't any books that build on the resilience of our people. A lot of the facts in the book, African Americans as well as other cultures don't know. And so from the stories that are told in this book, it'll give parents ideas of what to look for when they go to the library. See, librarians to me are the best customer service people. And if you go to the library and you ask about particular ideas that come up through the stories that are told in the book, or to gain more information about what's in the book, librarians will be able to direct young people or adults to books that would inform them about the beauty of the African American culture. And from the readings, it will naturally occur, it will organically occur, this beginning of love. So let me say right now that two of the most important lessons I learned in college from my mentor was blaming the victim. A lot of times African Americans don't want to talk about racism because it's very painful, and because they buy into, we have caused some of our own issues. And that is not productive thinking, because it's not true. The victim did not deliberately choose to go to inadequate schools with inadequate teachers, with inadequate resources. And so when we're blaming the victim, we're blaming them for something that they did not cause. And so we first have to be aware that we're not the problem. Right. And then the other thing that we have to think about, which my professor continually talked about, is the idea that we need to listen more to the facts. We need to look for facts, because we have been misguided. We have been misguided with mistruths, and too many of us believe the mistruths, and it's the mistruths that cause us to have such low self-esteem. So by going to the library and sitting down with a librarian, trust me, they will guide you to the type of readings that you need in order to become knowledgeable about the beauty of the culture, and also about moving forward in terms of having your child feel valued.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. And I love that you mentioned one of those resources and tools that sometimes is overlooked, which is just your local library.
Exactly.
The library now it's in your home. You have access to, if your local library you can go and you can pick up books at the, at their physical location, but now you can even check out books, right from your own home and go and pick them up in they'll have them ready for you when you get there. And so that's definitely, I'm glad that you shared that. And I love that your book now is in the library there in Ohio.
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing, Mary. I love that. I want to make sure too, Mary, as we are talking and we're talking about your book and really helping people to kind of get their arms around how do I help create an environment for the young people in my life that I want to have a good and substantial impact on the beauty of who they are inside and out. And so talk to us a little bit, because you have been doing a number of things since you released the book. So why don't you share some of what that has been? Because when I talk to people and they're putting books and such together, most often they don't know, okay, it's like, okay, what do I do? How does that work? What does it look like? So tell a little bit about what your experience has been since you have written and published your book.
Since I've written the book, the outpouring of appreciation for dealing with a topic that is very difficult in a way that is easy to understand for both children and adults, I have received just so many compliments from my culture, but also other cultures, in particular the white culture. I heard from a pediatric neurosurgeon that she's going to recommend the book to many of her friends. I've spoken to a therapist. So I'm getting overwhelming positive reviews from all types of individuals, from the educational system to the medical system to the psychological system. So that's very important to me. That feedback from everywhere has been overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, it really is a good book. And so, one of the things is that for those of you who are listening in to this interview today, the book is called Wisdom Warriors by Mary Cole Watson. It is 28 stories that are based around a young 6th, 7th grade girl, Sky, and her grandpa and her grandmother, who are the wisdom warriors in her life. Wisdom warriors. We look to those adults in our lives to help us to have wisdom, and Sky has it well beyond her years. But these are dialogues. These are conversations between grandparents and their granddaughter around issues that face African-American people. And like you said, Mary, it's a nice way to deal with not so nice topics. So give them a little bit of a rundown. Now we cannot tell you everything that is in the book. We'll give you some chapter titles and some subject matter so you can to whet your appetite. But we want you to get the book because you'll be amazed at the way that these stories really kind of help individuals relate. And I think that there's a lot for adults, even just adults reading the book will gain and have conversations with other adults as well. So Mary, share with them some of the topics that you hit, some of the chapter titles that you have in there to just kind of to whet their appetite of what to expect.
Okay. Culture, low school performance, colorism, African American History Month, which is my favorite story, hip hop, stereotypes, bad words, poverty, student careers, racial profiling, reading, police, justice, Miss Graham, which has to do with a teacher who is racist, special education, incarceration, ancestors, health, mental illness, child abuse, substance abuse, family reunion. Now listen, it isn't rocket science. If your child is not achieving the way you think your child, because you know your child best, and they're not achieving the way you want them to achieve, you need to start investigating. And the first thing that you want to pay attention to is, do they love themselves? And if they don't love themselves, then you need to be searching for readings that will affirm their beautiful culture, which will give them that self-love, because they will not be able to reach their purpose unless they have self-love. And if they have this self-love, they will be resilient and joyful despite how tragic racism is, and they'll be able to achieve at their highest potential. So that's what we need to pay attention to. Is my child happy? Is my child doing as well as he or she can based on what their ability level is? Look to see for, those traits. And if those traits should signal you to what you need to do next. And again, through these stories, there's a solution to every story. And the solutions will leave you with a joy for your culture.
Absolutely. Mary, listen, it is a pleasure chatting with you. I swear to goodness, this time we got 45 seconds. I'm telling you, it goes back too fast, too fast, too fast, too fast, too fast. But for those of you who have tuned in, make sure you get a copy of the book. You can go to www.wisdomwarriors2020.com. You see it there at the bottom of our screen. Grab a copy, read it, share it with someone else, get them a copy. Even as the holidays, as we start to approach the holidays, this will make a wonderful gift to adults and to children. Mary, I love how you just shared there, if nothing else, look at that child. Right. And if they are not achieving in the way that you think that they can, check out self-love first. Do they love themselves? And start there. Right. I think it's amazing. Amazing. Mary, it has been my pleasure, my dear. And for those of you who may want to reach out to Mary to speak or for interviews, for podcasts and such, you can email her at colewatson44@gmail.com. We're going to put it here at the bottom of the screen. You can grab it there, but reach out to her. Mary is an awesome interview. You can tell by this time that she and I have spent together. But for those of you, I know that Black History Month will be coming up. There were different groups and organizations and such that are sharing around these topics, especially for young people, especially for mental health. We came off of a very crazy year in 2020, which is just, it's matriculated over into 2021. So it's a tough time, and it's really a tough time for young people. And then you add to that African-American young people. Right. We really want to make sure that we encourage them and help to empower and equip them. And this is a way to do it. So reach out to Mary. I love having you on the show. Mary, is there any last words you want to give us before we sign off today? My last words are that I saw just recently that the New York Times had this big bold print that humanity must stand for climate change. Well, humanity must stand for children first, because if humanity stands for children first, which is our most valuable resource of all, then those children will grow up to respect climate change and everything else that we want them to respect. So humanity must stand up for children. I love that. Mary, God bless you. Thank you for being on today. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much, Michelle. It's been my pleasure. Thank you. Well, that is our show for today, everyone. Again, if you have not subscribed to the Let's Connect sessions, please do that by clicking the link below. As well, make sure you hit the bell so every time a new video and interview comes out, you'll be the first to know. Thank you so much for tuning in. Mary, it has been a pleasure. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.